Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Metzia, page 40a, top of the page. V'chein Amar Rabba hishbicho leemtza Amar le Abaya midami, etc. And likewise, Rabba says they enhanced the property, and the prophet goes to the middle. Abaya said to him, "Are these matters comparable?" There, in the case that the adult and minor brothers were together, the adults are aware that the minors exist and forego payment for their effort on behalf of their younger brothers. Here, in the case of Mari bar Isaac, was the older brother aware of the existence of the younger brother so that he could forego payment for his labor? The matter continued to develop and came before Rabbi Ami. He said to those who reported Rav Chiz's ruling, the sages stated a more far-reaching halacha than that. In the case of relatives who tend to the property of a captive, the court appraises their work as one would appraise the work of a sharecropper. Although the property they tended did not belong to them at all, they receive wages for their labor. Why then is the ruling now, in the case of Mari bar Isaac, that payment for labor on property that is his, we do not give him? Mari bar Isaac should be reimbursed for his expenditures. They returned and related this matter before Chizda. Yehoshua said to them, "Are these matters comparable?" There, in the case of the captive's property, it was with authorization from the court that the relative descended to tend the property. Here, it was without authorization that Mari bar Isaac descended to tend to the property of his brother. And furthermore, Mari bar Isaac's brother was a minor when Mari inherited the property, and the court does not authorize a relative to descend and manage the property of a minor. They returned and related this response before Rabbi Ami. Rabbi Ami said to them, they did not complete conveying all the details of the case before me, and I was unaware that Mari's brother was a minor. Rav Chizda is correct. New Mishnah. The Mishnah says, in a case of one who deposits produce with another, and the bailey provides him with different produce in return, that bailey deducts from the produce that he returns an amount equal to the standard decrease of the produce. The decrease is calculated according to this formula. For wheat and rice, he deducts 9 half kav per core, which is 180 kav. For barley and millet, he deducts 9 kav per core. For spelt and flaxseed, he deducts 3 se'ah, which total 18 kav per core. The entire calculation is according to the measure. And the entire calculation is according to the time elapsed. This is the amount of produce that the bailey deducts per 1 core of produce over the course of 1 year. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, and what do the mice care how much produce the bailey is safeguarding? Don't they eat the same amount, whether it is from much produce and whether it is from little produce? Rather, he deducts an amount equal to the standard decrease of just 1 core of produce. For Yehuda says, if the deposit was a large measure, the bailey does not deduct the decrease from it due to the fact that for different reasons it increases. Therefore, he returns the measure of produce that was deposited with him because the increase offsets the decrease. Gemara, the Talmud says, the Gemara challenges after decrease, rice is lacking a greater amount than what is recorded in the Mishnah. Rabbi Bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says it is with regard to shelled rice that the Tanaim taught the Mishnah. The Mishnah teaches for spelt and flaxseed he deducts 3 se'ah per core. Rabbi Yochanan says that Rabbi Chia says it is with regard to flaxseed on its stalks that the Tanaim taught the Mishnah, and that is why the rate of decrease is so great. The Gemara comments that is also taught in a Braita for spelt and for flaxseed is stalks on its stalks, and for unshelled rice he deducts 3 se'ah per core. The Mishnah teaches the entire calculation is according to the measure, and the entire calculation is according to the time elapsed. It is taught in a Braita that is the measure of decrease for each and every core, and that is the measure of decrease for each and every year. The Mishnah teaches that Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, and what do the mice care how much produce the Bailey is safeguarding? It is taught in a Braita that the sages said to Rabbi Yochanan, the reduction is due not only to mice eating the produce. Much of the produce is lost, and much other produce is scattered. It is taught in what cases is this statement said that the Bailey deducts 3 measures for the decrease. Is it a case where the Bailey mixed the produce that he is safeguarding with his own produce, and he is unable to distinguish between them? But if he designated a corner for the produce that he is safeguarding, the Bailey says to the owner of the produce, that which is yours is before you, and he does not calculate the decrease. The Gemara asks, and when he mixed the produce that he is safeguarding with his own produce, what of it? Why must he calculate the decrease? Let him see how much his produce was, add the amount that was deposited with him, and calculate how much the produce diminished over time. He can then divide the loss proportionally between his produce and the deposited produce. The Gemara answers, the Braita is referring to a case where the Bailey took supplies from that produce, and therefore it is impossible to ascertain the rate of decrease. The Gemara asks, and let him see how much produce he took as supplies and include this in his calculation. The Gemara answers, the Braita is referring to a case where the Bailey does not know with how much he took as supplies, and therefore he must calculate the decrease based on the measures enumerated in the Mishnah. The Mishnah teaches that Rabbi Yehuda says, if the deposit was a large measure, the Bailey does not deduct the decrease from it. The Gemara asks, how much is a large measure? Rabbi Bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says it is 10 core. That this is also taught in a Braita. How much is a large measure? It's 10 core. The Tana who recited Mishnayot and Braitot taught before Rav Nachman. In what case is this statement said that the Bailey deducts the decrease from the produce he returns? It is in a case where the owner of the produce measured the produce for the Bailey from his own threshing floor, and the Bailey returned the produce to him from his own threshing floor. The measures used in all threshing floors were equal and tended to err on the side of increasing the amount measured. But in a case where the owner measured the produce for the Bailey from his own threshing floor, and the Bailey returned the produce to him as measured by a measure from his own house, which were more precise than those used on the threshing floor, he does not deduct the decrease when returning the produce. This is because The produce of the owner deposited was measured with the increased measure of the threshing floor, and that offsets the decrease. Rav Nachman said to him, and are we dealing with fools who give the deposit with a large measure and take the produce back with a small measure? Clearly the same measure is used in both cases. Perhaps you are stating a ruling about the season of the threshing floor, and this is what it means. In what case is the statement said? It is said in a case where he measured the produce for the barley during the season of the threshing floor, and the barley returned the produce to him during the season of the threshing floor, in other words, during the same period. But in a case where he measured the produce for the barley during the season of the threshing floor, and the barley returned the produce to him during the rainy season, he does not deduct the decrease when returning the produce, because the produce that he received absorbed moisture and expanded, so that he ultimately returns the same measure. Amar Rav Papa. Rav Papa said to Abaya, if the volume of the grain expands during the rainy season, the jug in which the grain is placed should burst due to that expansion. The Gemara relates, there was an incident and the jug burst. If you wish, say instead that the volume contracted due to the compression. When the produce was deposited, it was loose and had greater volume. When the bailey returned it, the produce was tightly packed in the jug, resulting in lesser volume. Mishnah. New Mishnah. When the bailey returned the liquids that were supposed to be with him, he deducts 1/6 of the amount for wine to offset the decrease in volume due to absorption into the cask and evaporation. Yehuda says he deducts 1/5. He deducts 3 log of oil for 100 log, a log and a half for sediment that sinks to the bottom of the cask, and a log and a half for absorption into the cask. It was refined oil. If it was refined oil, and he does not deduct any of the oil for sediment because it was filtered. If the oil was stored in old casks that are already saturated, he does not deduct any of the oil for absorption. Rabbi Yehuda says, even in the case of one who sells refined oil to another, all the days of the year, this buyer accepts upon himself that the seller will deduct a log and a half of sediment for 100 log. That is the standard measure of sediment. Gemara. The Gemara says, the Gemara comments, and the first Tana and Rabbi Yehuda do not disagree with regard to the halacha. Rather, this sage ruled in accordance with the custom of his locale, and this sage ruled in accordance with the custom of his locale. In the place of one sage, meaning the first Tana, that they coat the casks with wax, and it does not absorb much. In the place of the other sages, Rabbi Yehuda, they coat the casks with pitch, and it absorbs much. And if you wish, say instead that it is due to the quality of earth from which they make the casks. Barrels made from this earth absorbs much, and barrels made from that earth do not absorb much. The Gemara relates, in Rabbi Yehuda's place, they would place the contents of 48 pitchers of oil into a barrel, as that was the standard size of barrels there. The barrel went for 6 dinars, and Rabbi Yehuda divided the oil and sold it for 6 pitchers full for 1 dinar.